Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Om Vishnu Padam Hamsa Prabhupada Sati Shishana Bhaktivedanta Saraswati ki. Premagaho Shri Krishna Chaitanya Pavanachananda Shri Dvaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaura Bhaktivedanta ki. Anantakoti Vaishnavinda ki. Shri Shri Radha Krishna Gopinath Shamakun Radhakun Giridavan ki Jai, Vrindavan Dham ki, Mayapur Dham ki, Jagannath Puri Dham ki, Gaudnichananda ki, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories assembled devotees, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. So today we're reading from the first canto, chapter 3, text 38. Name of the chapter is Krishna is the source of all incarnations. So Veda Datu Padavim Padasya. Oh, I was wondering. Okay. All right. So Veda Datu Padavim Padasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Anybody who has it on their phone want to chant? Oh, it's there. Okay. We'll do it one more time. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Hey, students. Oh, yeah. Any of them want to chant? Padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sarveda dhatu padavim parasya. Duranta viryasya ratangapane. Yomaya samtataya nivritya. Vajeta tatpada sarojagandham. Sa, he alone. Veda, can know. Dhatu, of the creation. Padavim, glorious. Parasya, of the transcendence. Duranta Viryasya, of the greatly powerful. Rata Anga Pane, of Lord Krishna, who bears in his hand the wheel of a chariot. Ya, one who. Amayaya, without reservation. Santataya, without any gap. Anuvritya, favorably. Vajeta, renders service. Tatpara, of his feet. Sarojagandham, fragrance of the lotus. Translation by Srila Prabhupada. Only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence. Responsively, only those who render unreserved, uninterrupted, favorable service unto the lotus feet of Lord Krishna, who carries the wheel of the chariot in his hand, can know the creator of the universe in his full glory, power, and transcendence. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Okay, purport. And I want you to listen for any words that kind of stick out to you as I read the purport. You just get one word or phrase that might kind of stick out. Only the pure devotees can know the transcendental name, form, and activities of Lord Krishna due to their being completely freed from the reactions of fruit of work and mental speculation. The pure devotees have nothing to derive as personal profit from their unalloyed service to the Lord. They render favorable service to the Lord incessantly and spontaneously without any reservation. What does that mean, incessantly? Can anybody say what incessantly means? Constantly, right. And spontaneously would mean what?
Multiple times at once.
Yeah, and just like in a moment, without, just. Okay. Everyone within the creation of the Lord is rendering service to the Lord indirectly or directly. So everyone's rendering service, one way or the other. Even people who don't know about Krishna, still, they're part of Krishna's material energy, and they're still serving that material energy, which is still part of Krishna. No one is an exception to this law of the Lord. Those who are rendering service indirectly, being forced by the illusory agent of the Lord, are rendering service unto him unfavorably. But those who are rendering service unto him directly, under the direction of his beloved agent, are rendering service unto him favorably. Such favorable servitors are devotees of the Lord, and by the grace of the Lord, they can enter into the mysterious region of transcendence by the mercy of the Lord. But the mental speculators remain in darkness all the time. As stated in Bhagavad Gita, the Lord himself guides the pure devotees toward the path of realization due to their constant engagement in the loving service of the Lord in spontaneous affection. That is the secret of entering into the kingdom of God. Fruit of activities and speculation are no qualifications for entering. So is there anybody here a word that just kind of stuck out to them? Anybody? Yes. Determination. Okay. Anybody else? Favorable. Okay. Some are performing favorable service. Some people are performing unfavorable service. and spontaneous. That's what we're trying to get to that, right? Just to be able to serve on a dime, always serving, always in our consciousness serving, no matter what. So another word a couple words that stood out to me was the secret. A couple things were mentioned like that it reminded me of the verse, Rajavidya Rajaguyam Pavichamitamutamam Pachak Savagamam Dharmyam Sisakam Kartamaviyam, that this knowledge is the king of education. It's the most secret of all secrets. It's the purest knowledge, and because it gives us direct perception of the self, the realization, it is everlasting, and it is joyfully performed. So, but it's a secret, and so it's a secret because, you have to know the difference between the body and the spirit. And we know that secret, but not everybody knows that secret. So much of the world, so much of the population is moving along on the premise that there are these bodies, and that's all there really is. So they're trying to get as much sense gratification as they can, and it's not very satisfying, so they're frustrated, and so much is going on in that way. So we're so lucky to be privy to that secret. Also, like there's a verse, Bhakti Mama Vijanati Yavan Yas Chasmi Tatpata Tatchamam Tatpatonyat Vavishite Tadanantaram, where Krishna says that you can know me as I am only by devotional service. And when it comes to full realization of this devotional service, then he can enter into the kingdom of God. So how can we enter into the kingdom of God? Okay, yeah, when we understand Krishna as he is in full devotional service. Another word that kind of stuck out to me was qualifications. So everything you do practically, there's qualifications. You have to live up to a certain standard. Like for doctors, they have to go all the way through school like you're doing. They have to go to high school. They have 4 years of college, and then they have another 4 years of medical school. Then they have another 3 years of med school, and then they have another 3 to 7 years of internship. So all of that to become a doctor, that's a lot, right? That's a lot to do. And nurses also have quite a lot of qualification. And even if you're studying karate, let's say, does anybody know anything about karate or is it with the belts? First you have the white belt, and then you go up to the yellow. Yes? You know a little bit about it? Okay, so what's the first belt? The white, and what comes after that? Do you know? Okay, yellow or orange. It's a lot of work, right? It's a lot of practice. Okay. And usually people practice every day, in order to get to the next belt, get to the next level. And soldiers, they also have to do a lot of practice before they can be inducted into the army. So practically everything you do, like in order to get into the University of Florida, you have to perform a lot of sacrifices, a lot of austerities. Because they'll look at your resume, they'll look at all your transcripts, they'll say, well, does this person have enough good grades? Has this person done enough social service? They want to see that you're a well-rounded person, that you've done some outreach, So all of this takes qualification. But qualifications for entering into the kingdom of God, that's a little different. That all comes by devotion. And it says here that fruit of activity and speculation are no qualifications for entering the kingdom of God. So there's a really nice story that kind of exemplifies this, of the wives of the Brahmanas. So what happened is Krishna and Balaram, they were in the forest with Krishna and Krishna and Balaram, they became hungry. So they asked the cowherd boys, can you go and ask the Brahmanas for some food? So they did. They went over and they said, my dear Brahmanas, and they were all busy getting ready to do, a special sacrifice. They said, we're hungry, can you give us some food? And Prabhupada comments that anybody that's hungry should be given charity. That's just a given. But these Brahmanas were so busy that they had no time. They had no time to give any food, In fact, they wouldn't even answer the cowherd boys. The cowherd boys were like, can you please give us some food for Krishna and Balaram? Like Krishna and Balaram? Could you please give us some food for them? They didn't even say yes. They didn't even say no. They just completely ignored them. So the cowherd boys, they went back. Krishna, Balaram, they wouldn't give us any food. You know what Krishna did? He just laughed. It figures that these guys wouldn't give any food. They're so busy with their fruitive activity because their goal in doing their big yajna was to gain the heavenly planets. That's what they wanted to do. Devotees, we don't bother with that because we're not even that interested in a heavenly planet. We want to go back to the planet where Krishna lives. So Krishna said, you know what? He said, just like somebody who has rose-colored glasses, they see the whole world as rosy. People who are mundane, they see everything mundane, including the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That when Krishna was here on the planet 5,000 years ago, most of the people didn't know who he was. They might have thought he was cool. They might not have liked him, like the demons. But only a very privileged few actually knew this is the Supreme Personality of Godhead. Why did those people know and everybody else didn't know? Can anybody say? Why did some people know that Krishna was the Supreme Personality of Godhead? Garanga. Yeah, they had the qualifications, right? Okay, then what happens is that Krishna tells the cowherd boys, okay, now I want you to go see the wives of the Brahmanas. So they went to the wives of the Brahmanas, and the wives of the Brahmanas, actually Krishna said he didn't want to send the boys there first because he knew that they would be in so much anxiety just to get everything ready for them. So the wives of the Brahmanas, they were so excited and so happy. It explains that the wives of the Brahmanas had been in Vrindavan and they had associated like with the flower giver and they'd associated with different personalities who knew Krishna. So they heard all about him. They heard all about his beauty. There was a really beautiful passage here. Let me just read this. Krishna's complexion was dark blue and his garment golden, wearing a peacock feather, colored minerals. What kind of colored minerals do you think they could wear? What? Turquoise? What? Okay, but the minerals, and maybe ground up and used, that's true. No, it could be. Turmeric probably, and different herbs that have beautiful colors. Flowers and leaves. He was dressed just like a dramatic dancer. He rested one hand upon the shoulder of a friend, and with the other twirled a lotus. Lilies graced his ears. His hair hung down over his cheeks, and his lotus-like face was smiling. So they had been meditating on Krishna for a long time, and they were just so excited and happy to be able to serve them. It explains they got 4 vessels of food, of the 4 kinds of food. What are the 4 kinds of food? Does anybody know? 4 kinds. What? Yeah. Yeah. Swallow. Yeah. The 4 different kinds of food, big vessels, and they were so happy to bring it to Krishna because they had the qualification. They had already meditated on Krishna constantly. They said they had no problem leaving their husbands. Actually, one of the wives of the Brahmanas, the husband would not let her go, so she actually left her body. So she could be with Krishna, in meditation. So here they are, they're simple women, they're simple ladies. They don't know all the mantras, right? They don't know everything you need to know to do the sacrifices. They don't even have second Brahman initiation. They haven't gone through so many purificatory processes, but that's not what Krishna consciousness is all about. It's not about following all those rules and regulations. In fact, sometimes just being very attentive to rules and regulations actually takes us away from Krishna because the main thing that we're trying to do is give our love. So the wives of the Brahmanas were successful where their husbands weren't. So it says that the wives of the Brahmanas, they didn't want to leave Krishna. They wanted to stay with Krishna. Like, we're done, we don't want to go back to the Brahmanas. But Krishna said, you know what, this would look very good if you left your husbands. He said, just continue what you're doing, continue meditating on me, continue serving me, and then you'll definitely come back home, back to Godhead. So but they were like, but our husbands are going to be so mad at us for leaving and coming to see you. He says, no, That's not going to happen. He said, because when you're purified, when you become a pure devotee like yourself, everybody loves you, just like with Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada could talk with anybody. He was so endearing that everybody just loved him. Newspaper reporters, everybody, they would just be so attracted to him. So when the Brahmana wives went back, just like that, the husbands were so happy to see him, and they were remorseful, it says, because they realized that everything they did, they missed their big chance. And so they were sorry, and they were very happy. They were glorifying their wives. And it says then, Krishna was going to be in Dwarka, so they all decided to go to Dwarka, all the Brahmanas' wives, but the Brahmanas wouldn't go. Anybody know why the Brahmanas wouldn't go? They wouldn't go because they were afraid of Kamsa. They were afraid, what is Kamsa going to do if he sees that we're celebrating Krishna? He doesn't like Krishna, so they might hurt us, and we don't want to get hurt. But the Brahmanas' wives, again, they had no hesitation. They were just totally going for it, So that's the difference. Again, they had the qualification. So we are trying to develop that same kind of qualification. We're trying to leave this world of illusion. Like there's one prayer we chant every morning, Samsara Davanala Lita Loka, Chanaya Karunya Ganaganatam Puttasya Kalyana Gunarnavasya, Vande Guru Shri Charanarvindam. And it says, the translation, one person louder. Even the benediction of the ocean of mercy. Just as a cloud pours water on a forest fire to extinguish it, so the spiritual master extinguishes the blazing fire of material existence. And I was listening to a class by Radhanath on this verse, and he was saying that fire is so scary. Like there's 3 things that you have to take care of immediately. I think it's fire, death, and disease. You need to just be on it. So he said, like, when there's a fire, he explained that once there was a fire in the brahmachari ashram, they were all sitting there eating, and all of a sudden there was a fire. So did they say, oh, that's okay, we'll just wait for it done, take it for Shabbat, this is so delicious? You think they did that? No. They were like, ah! They got up, they got the fire extinguisher, they put out the fire. And fire, that's a really, really big deal. Like years ago, I'm not totally sure of the year of the Great Chicago Fire, and this fire burned for 3 days. It was started in the barn. This is how the story goes anyway. Mrs. O'Leary was milking her cow in the barn, and she had a lantern, and the cow kicked the lantern fell over, it started a hay on fire, and it just spread. It just spread, as they say, like wildfire. Couldn't be stopped. Burned for 3 days, just completely destroyed a good portion of Chicago. Of course, Chicago is famous for gangsters, slaughterhouses, so, the reaction came. It all came, the reaction to that. But even today, we see, like in California, there's these horrific fires, and they don't discriminate. Do you have... Exactly, also the Australia wildfires. And guess what? The fire doesn't say, okay, I'm only going to go to the poor people's house, I'm only going to go... No, it just goes everywhere. Like in Malibu, 100,000 acres of land were destroyed. All these people's beautiful homes with their, antique furniture and their art, and everything was just gone. People, even, when the forest fires, even devotees, I know some devotees, like Anipaini's brother and mother were there when that forest fire, and they just took their pets, their deities, and they just had to leave, and their house was completely destroyed. So when it says in those prayers that we're in a blazing fire, this is a blazing fire of material existence. And it's a blazing fire because we're being assaulted on all sides by so many things, by Adhyatmic, by Adhibautic, by Adhidaivik, so many miseries. And besides that, the time of death can come at any moment. So we need to be cultivating this love. Now there's a story in Krishna book about another fire. And the way this story goes is that the cowherd boys were out with Krishna and Balaram, and they were having a picnic. Krishna was giving some of his food to the cowherd boys that his mother had made, and they were giving Krishna some of the food that their mothers had made and said, give some of this to Krishna. So they were all having a good time, and the cows, they kind of wandered away. They were looking for, they thought the grass was always greener a little farther down. So they were just, walking, and by the time the boys realized it, they didn't know where the cows were, so they kind of got scared, like, where are the cows? So Krishna said, don't worry, we'll just go together, we'll go find them. So he went to go find him, and then it said he called him. It said his voice sounded like a rumbling cloud. That was Krishna's voice. Then he called each cow by name, and it said the cows answered back, So he found the cows, and they were starting to leave when this forest fire enveloped them. It was just everywhere, and the cows were crying, and the cowherd boys, and they're like, help, help, we're your surrendered servants. Can you please do something? Can you please help us? We're suffering so much. You know what Krishna told them? What was the first thing Krishna told them? Does anybody know?
Don't be afraid.
Okay, don't be afraid, and what else? Your karma. He did not say that. You never say that. It's the worst thing to say. It's your karma. He said, close your eyes. Close your eyes, Don't be afraid. Close your eyes. Yes, go behind me. Oh, I thought you had your hand up. Close your eyes. And then, what did Krishna do? He swallowed the entire forest fire. He just sucked it all in. So, we're so lucky again. We're in on the secret. You know how somebody has a secret and other people don't know it, but you know it? We have the secret. The only thing that's a little different about it is that we're willing to share the secret. Devotees go out every day, or special occasions they go out and they share the secret in the form of Harinam and in the form of Prabhupada's books. There was also a great story. Today is the disappearance day of Ramanujacharya. And there was a story about Ramanujacharya, who was born under special circumstances. His parents, his mother and father, they really prayed for him and performed special sacrifices to have a son that would be able to help the world. So they prayed for Ramanujacharya. He was born, and at one point he heard about a scholar. His name was Gosti Purna, who was expert in mantra. So he asked, somebody recommended, why don't you go and study under this great scholar? So Ramanuja did. And he had heard that Gosti Purna, he had a special mantra that if anyone heard it, they were guaranteed to go back to Godhead. So he really wanted that mantra. But Gosti Purna refused to give it to him. He said, I'm sorry, I don't think you're qualified. So Ramanuja could come and ask another time. So Ramanuja kept on asking, but he kept on getting the same answer. No, I don't think you're qualified. But then one day, the priest at the temple spoke to Gosti Purna and he said, you know what, the deity spoke to me. And he said, you should give this mantra to Ramanuja. So then Gosti Purna was like, well, I guess I should do it then. So he explained to him, it's a very secret mantra. Don't give it to anybody. This is just for you. And you're guaranteed to go back to Godhead. And the mantra was, Om Namo Narayanaya. So he was very happy to get it. And again, Gosti Purna told him, do not share this with anybody. So what did Ramanuja do? He shared it with everybody. He walked through the town and he said, I've got a precious jewel. Follow me. I've got the greatest gift ever. So because of his purity and his forcefulness in his voice, everybody followed him. He was like on a higher place, and he explained to them, I'm going to give you a mantra, and this mantra, it's going to stop all the miseries, the adhyatmic, the adhibautic, the adhidaivik. It's going to stop it. And you're going to be delivered. You're going to be liberated. So then he said, repeat after me, Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. Om Namo Narayanaya. And he said the people, after they said it, they gave up all their material desires. Maybe that'll happen to us. They gave up all the material desires. They weren't interested in the jewels anymore. They felt so peaceful. They felt so happy. They were so grateful. So then, Ramanuja went back to see his spiritual master. When he got there, he paid his obeisances. How do you think Gostipurna was feeling at that point? He was so angry. He was seeing red, right? He was furious. I don't want to see your face. You're the last person's face I ever want to see. How could you do it? I told you that anybody that shared this mantra, this secret mantra without permission, was going to hell. So why would you do that? And Ramanuja, he apologized. I'm so sorry. He goes, but what does it matter? If I go to hell, if one person goes to hell, and all these other people were liberated from chanting the mantra, I'm prepared to go to hell. So at that point, Gostipurna said, he fell down at Ramanuja's lotus feet. He said, actually, you are the real spiritual master. You are the one. I want to be your disciple. You've really understood. So that's our position. That's our position. That we have the secret, we have this purest knowledge, and we want to be able to share it with everybody. And we're praying to Krishna that he can reveal himself. There's another verse, Haranyamena patrena satyasa patitam mukham tatram pusan apavranu satyajamaya drishtaye, where Krishna says, oh my Lord, please remove your dazzling effulgence so I can see your true form of bliss. So, it can take some time for us to be able to be free of these coverings, although we're pretty close because there's different stages of God realization. There's the stage of Brahman, of understanding Krishna as the energy, the stage of Paramatma, of understanding Krishna in our heart, and the stage of understanding Krishna as a person. So think about that. We're already in the highest stage. Now we're just working, and just like the wise of the Brahmanas, the more that we study, the more that we meditate on Krishna, the more that we talk about Krishna with our friends and about his glories, the more that he'll be present for us all the time. So, and again, there's no qualification. Like, you take Narada Muni. Narada Muni was a small boy living in an ashram with his mother who was feeding these great sages. And he helped her. He would help feed the sages. And sometimes if they left remnants, he would ask permission, is it okay if I eat your remnants? And they said, yes, it's okay. So Narada Muni, I don't even know who his father was. So there's probably some backstory, I don't know what it is. But it wasn't prominent. He had his mom. And of course, as we know, the mother was bitten by a snake, and the mother, she died. So then it was just Narada Muni on his own. But it explains that because he had the association of sages and saintly people, and because he tasted their remnants, he had been transformed. So we may not always realize how we've been transformed. Probably adults maybe more, and more at different times than other times. But sometimes when you go out into the world, you may go, like, I know there was a young devotee that went to visit her family in South Florida. And she was thinking that her grandmother was ill. She think might stay there for a while and take care of her. But, she was like horrified, She was horrified that, first of all, they were so miserable, but they didn't want to know the secret. Can you imagine that? They're suffering, but they want to know the secret of how they don't have to suffer anymore. So she was actually unable to stay for long. She stayed enough, to be kind and give them prasadam and like that. But we have something very, very special in the secret that we're sharing. I can tell another story about Ramanuja. And the story of Ramanuja goes that where he lived, there was a great scholar. And he studied under him. He was recommended to go study under this scholar. His name was Yadava Prakash, I think it was the name of him, Yadava Prakash. And so he went, but this scholar, this so-called learned person, was just preaching Mayavadi philosophy. So one day he was giving his teacher a massage, and his teacher was explaining the meaning of a verse. He quoted the verse, and it was kapiyasyam, something like that. And the teacher was explaining the translation of this verse was that Krishna had lotus eyes, and they were the color of the rear end of a monkey. And so, as Ramanuja massaged the teacher, he was so disturbed by this description that explained that hot tears came shooting out of his eyes. When they came shooting out of his eyes and hit the body of his teacher, Yadaprakash turned, he was like, "What's wrong?" And he said, "That's not the correct translation." And he divided the word in such a way that it meant like drinking up the water, drinking up the nectar, and which meant a lotus flower. So he said, actually, it means that Krishna has lotus eyes, and they're like lotus flowers. So Yadaprakash didn't like that much. He was like, "Oh, well, if you know so much, why do you even bother coming here to school?" So he actually got expelled at one point. Then he came back, but the teacher became so afraid of Ramanuja that he actually plotted to kill him. They decided they would take a trip to another part of India where the Ganges flew. They could kill him in a certain section, and then they could bathe in the Ganges to purify themselves from the reaction of killing a Brahmin, and just go about their business. So what do we call that? It's a fence, right? That's right. Well, we'll just do this, and we can just do that, and it'll all be gone. So that was their plan, and a lot of the boys were in on it. Ramanuja also had a very saintly cousin, so when they were at the place they were going to kill him, and Ramanuja was somewhere in the forest, his cousin Govinda said, "Hey, Ramanuja, they're plotting to kill you, you know?" And so Govinda left, and Ramanuja left, and he went through the forest, had all kinds of adventures, trying to find his way back to Sri Rangam. And he eventually made it back, and they thought, the teacher and the students thought, "Oh, Ramanuja, he didn't come back, he probably got eaten by an animal just as well. We didn't, better we didn't have to kill him." So when they get back to Sri Rangam and they see that he's there, they're feeling slightly uncomfortable. And actually, the teacher, he starts to feel very remorseful. He feels very sad. And the experience with Ramanuja was that he was so pure, and he was so bright, that he stood out. Even to demons, he'd have like debates with different demoniac persons, Mayavadis, and there was another story with Yagnamurti, a great scholar, but ultimately both of these scholars, they surrendered to Ramanuja because they could see that he was so pure, that he had no false pride, that he was just so full of love. Like, even when the teacher was going to kill him, he actually at one point went back to the school, surrendered again, was taking instruction until it just became too distasteful. He left. But again, both these scholars, Yagnamurti and Yadaprakash, they completely surrendered to Ramanuja because of his purity. And of course, we saw that with Srila Prabhupada too, that so many people were attracted to him because of his purity. You just want to be around him. You just want to, wherever he was, he would gather a crowd of people. You just wanted to see him. Even when I was in India, and he was giving class in Hindi, it didn't matter. We just sat there. We just wanted to look at him. We just wanted to listen, even though we couldn't really understand a word he said. We just wanted to be around him. So those are some of the points I wanted to cover. Just about how to give up fruit of work, mental speculation, and how to be able to just really concentrate on serving and loving Krishna. Does anybody have any thing they'd like to add, subtract? Any comments? Yes, Prabhu.
Dear Mother Sukhada Haribol, I was just remembering by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada and my Guru Maharaj, he took us to the temple of Ramanujacharya where this pastime happened by the Godavari River.
You mean where the mantra?
Yes,
Oh.
and then I was just remembering, thank you for this beautiful class, but so we wanted to take darshan of the deity of the temples, we were 200 devotees. And the way they made this temple is you have to actually go to the temple in different floors. And every time you go to a floor, you have to kneel more down. Then you go down and another room, then you kneel more down. Then it's another room, so we were 200 people, right? So
Oh my God.
first, and he's big, right?
Oh.
And I right behind him. So each room will become smaller and smaller. So, everybody from the safari, until you go on your knees.
For the listening audience, you should see this because he's demonstrating.
The last room. The last room. The last room is a little door this big. So you have to go down to this, then you go out and then you just see this.
Wow.
So you gotta go like this.
The deity was a deity of.
Then you go, the first room is up, then you go up, down, then you go up, down, then when you go down, then the deity is there.
Wow.
So it took us like 2 hours to have darshan because. So anyway, I was just remembering that past time.
Yeah.
Maybe should have talked about
So the deity is of Ramanuja?
No, the deity is a deity of Vishnu. Okay, but you have to go like that.
Okay.
To become humble.
There you go.
Come to see Krishna like, hey, Krishna. But Ramanuja temple, that temple, they made it in a way that you have to actually
Wow.
go to your knees to see.
That's really far out. I'd like to see that temple sometime.
Guru Maharaj ki.
Bye.
What part of India is it?
Excuse me?
What part of India is it?
It's in the South India by the Godavari River, close to where Lord Chaitanya met with Gadadhar Pandit. Go there and take a ride. He's still going there.
He's still there.
Keep going.
Yeah.
All right. I guess it's all Krishna's pastimes, but I got this question in my mind that I can't help but ask.
Go right ahead.
How come there are no Vedic records of Narada Muni's father paying child support?
I guess because he accepted Krishna as his father. How's that for an answer? Okay. Yes.
Do you know how old, around what age was this happening with Ramanuja when he was defeating?
Well, I know it was like 10, 17 when he was born. So I'm not totally sure. I'm not totally sure of the age when he was defeating these scholars.
Was he a young teenage or was it a full adult?
I think it was. Like when he went to the school of Yada Prakash, he was definitely young at that point, but very knowledgeable, and people felt very threatened by him. They thought that, well, we have to kill him. Well, first they were just like, he's expelled from school, that's good enough. But then Yada Prakash and some of the students were like, no, he'll open up, because Yada Prakash said, okay, if you're so smart, then you leave the school, you open up your own school. So some of the students were saying, well, that's probably what he's going to do. He's probably going to go, he's going to open up in his own school, and then everyone's going to want to be a bhakti yogi, So we don't want to do that. We'll have to kill him. It's hard to imagine that it would get that bad, but it just shows how it can grow, The hatred and envy, what it does to people, how it just twists them. Sometimes you can even see. I heard in a store recently. I heard the song that George Harrison wrote. The thoughts in their head manifest on their brow, like bad scars from ill feelings that they themselves arouse. So hateful of anyone that is happy or free. They live all their lives without wanting to see the light that is light of the world, Krishna. So it's true. It's true. And it was very fun. Anything else? Siddhi? Yes. Oh, Dharma. I can't see, so excuse me.
Okay. It's a nice mood created, but I want to share one pastime that may kind of change the mood a little bit. There's one very instructive pastime involving Ramanujacharya with the relationship of the Lord and his devotees. When Ramanujacharya came to Jagannath Puri, he and all his followers, they saw the standard of worship at the Jagannath temple. So Ramanujacharya decided that the standard wasn't proper, so he wants to change it. So he made an arrangement that next morning they're going to have a meeting with the king and everyone. And so they set a time, and all the pandas and the king, anyway, not the king, but everybody else assembled, waiting for Ramanujacharya to come to share his new level of instructions. But they were waiting, and Ramanujacharya or his followers, they weren't turning up. So then at that point, the king came and he shared a message with everyone. He said Lord Jagannath dreamt him last night and told him that he chastised Ramanujacharya for wanting to disturb the worship by his devotees. So he airlifted he and his followers back to South India that night.
Right.
And so he told him not to disturb his devotees' worship.
Huh.
So
Wow.
I think it's very instructive for us, the devotees' relationship.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. It's really nice. Okay, anybody else? All right, thank you so much for your kind attention. There's Prabhupada.